The UK public sector spends a great deal of money with construction companies. Councils face a huge demand for new builds, schools, office buildings and especially new housing. Likewise, many councils have social housing stock, along with many other property assets, which all need to be maintained, refurbished and occasionally demolished. This means there's an opportunity for construction companies, both big and small, to compete for works. The opportunities are even greater if you start to consider applying for tenders run by housing associations. Unlike the private sector, however, where a contract might be awarded on a quote alone, the public sector tendering process can be a bit daunting and definitely more time-consuming. We cover this in more detail in our previous videos, but public bodies like councils, NHS trusts, universities and schools are funded through public money. This means their spending is scrutinised by everyone, and so they need to seek assurances from their prospective suppliers that they can deliver the works properly and to the quality standards they expect, and affordably. This is the case across all industries, not just construction tenders, and so this means there are a few hoops to jump through if you want to win a public sector construction contract. Whilst this will be a lot of work, the benefits of getting your hands on a contract are huge. Not only do public bodies pay on time, once you get that first contract, you can leverage this experience when applying for the next. The trick is to get your foot in the door and get on the books of your local council or housing association. So what does a construction tender look like? If you've ever looked at the contents of a construction tender, understandably, it can be overwhelming. The tender document set will likely contain upwards of 10 separate documents, and the buyers aren't always organised in the way they present these. You'll probably see tender instructions, design information, site plans and layouts, etc., preliminaries and maybe a schedule of works, design and construction requirements and specifications, standards, safety information including asbestos surveys, contract information, a template contract which will usually be industry standards such as a JCT, and a pricing schedule. Where do I start? This isn't a tender writing tutorial, but our approach to bid writing starts with a review of the tender instructions. This is often called the Invitation to Tender or ITT document. See what the buyer is looking for and see whether it's something that your company can do. Here, you'll see how the buyer intends to score the tender. First, you need to pay attention to any criteria that are essential, including any pass-fail criteria, insurance levels required, accreditations needed, minimum turnover, etc. Public bodies will generally be strict on this, so if your company can't meet these criteria, you may as well not apply for the tender. Next, look at the scored criteria. This will likely be made up of a selection of questions that you must answer and your quote. Your price will be given a certain weighting, let's say 60% of the tender marks, with the remaining 40% spread across the quality questions. These quality questions will probably have word limits as well, and require essay-styled responses. Features and requirements of construction tenders. Every tender will be different, but construction contracts cover very similar ground in the kinds of questions they ask. You'll probably come across questions on health and safety procedures, how you manage risk assessments, method statements, RAMs, build standards, your quality assurance process, environment and sustainability, project management and staff resources, and your experience. Let's look at these in a bit more detail. Health and safety. Do you have a responsible officer with relevant qualifications? Talk about any personal protective equipment, PPE, that you provide your staff, any policies and procedures you have in place for hot works, working at heights, first aid, load working, COSH, RIDDOR, etc. Company accreditations such as CHAS, and staff industry recognised health and safety qualifications like CSCS cards. Risk. Who's responsible for risk in your organisation? What risks do you foresee in this project and how will they be mitigated? How do you typically manage risks? What do your RAMs look like? Do you have insurance? Standards. How do you check work standards? Do you conduct inspections? What qualifications do your staff or subcontractors have? What quality of materials do you use with regards to British standards? What accreditations do your company have? Sustainability. How will you lower your carbon footprint? What modern methods of construction do you use? Do you select energy efficient materials like insulation or double triple glazing? Do you source materials like timber sustainably? Do you use a local supply chain? Project management and resourcing. Describe your team and the subcontractors you have access to, talking about their skills and expertise. How do you keep track of the program of works, making sure things are kept to schedule and to budget? What training do you provide your team? How do you keep up to date with changes to legislation and industry best practice? Experience. Have you completed contracts of this scale and complexity before? Give examples of similar contracts, what issues you faced, and how you overcame them. What was the outcome of each example? Did you meet the budget? Did you deliver on time? Once you have a good idea of what questions you need to answer, you should tackle the other documents. Starting with the specification, read through this document and start assigning the relevant bits to the relevant quality questions. The point here is to record what the buyer wants to see in the response, so that you can make sure you're hitting the mark in your submission. Do this for all the documents and you'll be ready to start writing. Things to keep in mind. Part of our success as professional bid writers comes from understanding the priorities facing public sector estate regeneration teams, asset management teams, and housing and property teams. Social value priorities, renewable energy, and sustainable build practices are becoming more and more common in the construction tenders we see. With the government's ambitious target to become carbon neutral by 2050, the pressure is on local government to carry this out. And one way they're doing this is by tweaking the way they commission building projects. These days, it's not enough to show that you have a qualified team of multidisciplinary workers or that you have robust risk management and health and safety practices in place. To win that tender, you should really demonstrate how you source sustainable supplies from local merchants, or how you support your team in their personal and professional career development. You should demonstrate that you can stay on top of modern methods of construction and are aware and use environmentally friendly materials like insulation and prefabricated components. You should be supporting apprentices, involve yourself in the local community, helping out where you can, or at least be willing to commit to these things. You should start to invest in low carbon initiatives. From the big things like low emission vehicles in your fleet to small things like having no single-use plastics within your environmental management policy. Even introducing a car or vehicle sharing policy or cycle to work scheme gives you something to talk about for these kind of questions and helps to demonstrate to the buyer that you are like-minded and carbon conscious. A big part of the trick to writing a winning bid comes from researching what your buyer values and showing how you can help them achieve their objectives. This video has focused on a single stage tendering process, usually called an open tender, with just one invitation to tender stage. Sometimes you'll face a two-stage process, which will have an initial selection stage. We talk more about this in another video. Two-stage processes are common for tenders for construction frameworks, but these are a different kettle of fish. We don't have time to cover this here, but we do already have a video on frameworks in general. And if you'd like to see a video dedicated to construction frameworks, let us know in the comments. For more information on tendering and procurement, check out our website at www.frameworker.co.uk.